Back to Sports Edge. Hey, we even brought Eric Dobratz out of vacation for this one. We're going to talk about the fall sports at the high school level and talk about some of the great teams and their accomplishments, kind of recognize some of the great teams from the fall sports. We understand the teams have done things outside of fall, going on now, going on prior. Fall. Let's start with you, Eric.
Well, we all spend a lot of time covering high school football, and I know, John, you're going to talk about that, but I was actually covering a high school football game on a Friday night at Haddam-Killingworth High School. They're playing Granby. I'm in the parking lot getting, the stuff out of the car, and I have 3 field hockey players walk up to me and said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" I said, "I'm doing the football game." "Well, you should do a story about us." I said, "Oh, really?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Why?" They're like, "Well, we're good." I'm like, "Oh, that's great. There's a lot of good teams, whatever, but our coach is great." I said, "Okay, here's my business card." I said, "You send me an email and I'll come do something on your team." So the next day, the girls went to their assistant coach, and she sent me an email saying, "Can you do a story about our team? They're defending state champs. Their coach, Patsy Camerja, was in her 38th year. She'd just been inducted to the Connecticut Hall of Fame, just won her 400th game. So here's a couple of kids who just come up to a stranger in a parking lot, say, do a story about us." And we followed through and did a great story about a great team who ended up losing in the quarterfinals. But it was just a nice experience, and these girls made it happen.
And good for them for coming up and approaching you on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and you mentioned football, and that's the team that I'm going to pick for the team that I enjoyed covering the most. Now, Ansonia, of course, gets a lot of recognition, and deservedly so. 3 straight undefeated seasons. They win the Class S title again, 43-0 the last 3 seasons. Arkell Newsom with a record-breaking career. But the team I really enjoyed the most covering this year was North Haven football. Here's a team that, over 10 years ago, Tony Signella came in, took over the program. No one really cared. No one even knew about North Haven football. Fast forward to this year, and you look at them, they make the playoffs. They get their first playoff win. But the thing that really stood out to me about covering that team was the involvement of the parents, of the community. Going to North Haven High football game became an event. Parents tailgating in the parking lot. What they do every year in community service. This past year, they had Matthew Jakes, was a little boy who was battling an illness, unfortunately lost his life, but they got really connected with him. So they're learning so many life lessons under Tony Signella. And then they had some success on the field, nearly made it to the state championship game. So that was the team that I enjoyed covering the most this year.
And they've kind of instilled that whole football in their whole community. Right now, all the youth teams are running the same offense, which is a bear to cover from our point of view, shooting those games.
And it's something they modeled after Hand of Madison, because when you go to Hand of Madison, the surf club, you go to a game there, and you're like, wow, the band, the cheerleaders, the involvement, and that's what North Haven wanted to do, and they're kind of getting there slowly. They're like a single-A version of the major league version of Hand of Madison, if you will.
Well, I wanted to recognize a team that's not even a CIAC sport officially, but the Greenwich High School water polo team. Water polo is not a sport that you see a lot of in this part of the country, so this is a team that has to travel all over the eastern seaboard to find games. We had a group of kids at Greenwich High School who've been playing together since they were like 5th grade, 4th grade. They got to their senior year. They lost one game. That one game they lost was to a college team, to a team from Navy, the Navy JV team, which they had beaten earlier in the year. They won over 30 games, and they tied one team in Montreal. They would get into the van. They have this red van that they get into on Fridays, drive to, down to Annapolis or up to Canada, play teams, and, there aren't a lot of teams locally that they can play, and they had a tremendous season, like I say, winning over 30 games, tying one team from Canada, and their only loss was to a college team that they had previously beaten.
Well, that's fantastic. And that's what bonding, too, if you're taking 8-9 hour van rides with each other. You learn a lot about each other.
Exactly. Listen, we want to talk more because there are some other teams that we want to recognize. We're going to do that over on SportsEdge.com, but here on television, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, more sports, including a feature John put together on 2 guys who just played against each other on the same field for the state championship, who will now be on the same field as teammates moving forward in college. But back here to this, guys, I think just as we look, girls soccer, a team that should be recognized. Guilford, the Guilford girls soccer team loses 2 games all year, is to the same team, right? They just couldn't beat Cheshire, otherwise they go on and they beat Brantford for the state championship.
Yeah, and I think kids in Guilford grow up playing soccer, and they've had a great program, boys and girls, for years, so congratulations to them. You have the St. Joe's team as well, another soccer team this year that had a great season. So just a couple of other teams that, really stood out.
They had that one tie against Wilton, otherwise they win the state championship undefeated.
Boys soccer, Class XL, Glastonbury and Ridgefield, 1-1. overtime game, co-champion. So what a way to end the season with co-championship. Also note, what's Morgan volleyball, 20-0 season, win a state championship, beat Coventry and Lyman Memorial on their way to a title.
And you mentioned boys soccer, Farmington. I mean, they had what a year for them. Last couple of years.
The fact that they win their championship game 4-0 for their second straight state championship. The year before they won it 5-0. So in their last two championship games, you go 9 goals for, 0 goals against. Back to that Morgan. Morgan knocks off Coventry, as you say, in the semifinals. Coventry had won 7 consecutive state championships. So Morgan breaks through to win the state championship in that. Another one that I think it has to be recognized is the Tallinn girls cross country team. Yeah. Right, cross country you score with your top 5 runners. So in the Class M championship meet, they go first place, second place, third place, fourth place, 7th place. That's unheard of. They end up winning the Open Championship as well.
Brantford came out of nowhere to win the Class M cross country as well this year. They're expected to be good, but I think they even surprised themselves by winning a state title. So, and we're probably going to forget some teams as well.
Absolutely.
And if we are, we encourage people to write in, email us, and let us know about these teams, because that's sometimes the way we find out.
Or go to SportsEdge.com, because this is being, well, if you're seeing this, it's on SportsEdge.com, but we invite you to write in your suggestions as well, and they can be right here on the website. So thanks for tuning in. In fact, next week, over on SportsEdge, the television show, we're going to be talking about college teams that should be recognized for Great Falls. For now, that'll do it for us. Thanks, guys. We'll see y'all later.